Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's really the story, and it's been the story, obviously, for some time with this company. And so, and there's just a huge, I was looking at the numbers just a little earlier today, and I mean, there's just such a huge spread in terms of, what people are looking for in the quarter. I mean, honestly, you could see anything, if you look through the whole batch from sort of 30-odd million all the way up to, low 60s. I mean, so it's just crazy numbers out there in terms of iPhone units. So, that's just shows you some of the uncertainty, which also gets factored in is that the quarter was actually somewhat shorter. It was like a week shorter than last year. So, there's also that going on. So you kind of have to play two games at once in terms of trying to decide whether you want to have a true quarter-over-quarter comparison or you just want to go with the actual numbers they produce. But that's going to be the big number. And then the next big number, obviously, is margins. I mean, generally speaking, if it's in the high 30s and 40% gross margins overall, that's going to be pretty key. But if you see something lower than, say, 37%, maybe 36, even 36 probably, then it sort of bombs away. Because one of the great fears, for Apple right now is that their mix doesn't really favor them that well, meaning the mix of products that they're selling, that potentially the margins on Mini and the new iPhone will drag down the business in terms of the overall gross margins. And that's a number that I think everyone's going to really key on to see if it falls back into the sort of the mid to sort of high 30s.
Speaking of margins, then, how do the reported plans that they're working on a cheaper iPhone, this whole idea of payment plans in China,
right.
How does that hit the bottom line?
Well, that's why I think, in part, Tim Cook, Apple CEO, was so quick to kind of, in a sense, shoot that down a little bit, or at least try and say, Apple, reposition it, say, Apple's always going to be a provider of high-quality products, and all these great euphemisms, which are really sort of Wall Street speak or coded speak to Wall Street to, don't worry your pretty little heads about our margins, they're not going to go down. But that was really why, because that's all, sort of, high in people's minds right now, that margins are under pressure and potentially could come down to, 37% or so. And a lower priced product and discounted pricing schemes in China would bring it down even faster than people expect, which would be fairly calamitous for the stock at this time.
And what about Apple's brand? I mean, how does the fact that they're potentially working on these cheaper iPhones impact the aspirational nature of the Apple brand, the coolness factor?
Yeah, it impacts it a lot, and historically Apple hasn't really done very much of that kind of broad-based marketing where they try to hit people at all price points. It would be really unusual and somewhat surprising if they did. My guess is instead they're more likely to do a whole family of products, different colors, different form factors, and try and get out of their current trap of having such a lumpy product cycle, and that'll be their escape hatch. Not a low-price product, but a whole family of products at different sizes, ranging on up to these sort of, this horrific word, phablet, but nevertheless these larger sort of tablet-like phones rather than a true discount product. And then they don't get into this problem of all iPhone sales freeze in anticipation of the next product because they're shipping new units throughout the year.